This is J. Krishnamurti's ninth public talk in Saanen, 1963.
As one observes in the modern civilization, where everything is being organized, there is less freedom in action. And we are losing this spontaneity and the passion in action. For most of us, action has become routine. Going to the office, or doing something in the kitchen, washing dishes, or writing a book or painting a picture. Everything, as one observes, is being canalized along a series of patterns. And obviously, there is no question of inquiry into action at all. What to do? That question only arises when we have problems. Then we ask ourselves, what is the right thing to do? Or we try to analyze, grope, find out a solution, an answer to the various problems that one has. And that's all the action we know. And it seems to me, as we have been discussing, there is an action which is in action. And I would like to talk about that, go into it rather deeply this morning if I can. Because we never question or inquire, or try to find out what is action. Apart from the daily events, apart from the demands of a particular society, or the urgency of a problem that demands an action. Within that narrow field, we try to find out what is action, what to do. I think there is a wider field of inquiry and a greater depth of search to find out what is action. And if we could find that out, then the limited actions of every day and the demands of a particular society the militaristic, the socialist, the social responses and so on, they will have a greater significance and a deeper importance. So if I may, I would like to go into that. What is action? Not what one should do under a particular circumstances. That will be answered a little later. And if we restrict ourselves to that, that is, what am I to do given a particular issue, then action becomes, or what to do becomes very superficial, immediate, and not significant. So perhaps if we could inquire not into what to do, but what is action? Because then you will find that our action has various motives, or our action is an approximation of a formula, a concept, an idea. And our behavior is according to the concept, to the formula, to the idea. So there is a gap, an interval between the action and the idea. And this gap, this division, breeds conflict. And thereby we lose energy and therefore no action. Because action demands energy, force, drive. But if that action is conditioned by an idea being a rationalized, thought out, organized thought, then that action is limited. And being limited, in the very act, it loses its own momentum, activity. I hope as we go along, I'll be able to explain what I mean. But I think, if I may suggest, you should give little attention to what is being said. We are not talking abstractly in theory. As I have often pointed out during all these talks, we are not indulging in theories and ideas. Therefore, we are concerned with facts, with action. And as long as action is confined, limited by an idea, that action not only creates conflict, in that action there is no spontaneity, and therefore it is not productive of energy. We only know energy through conflict, through competition, through friction. that generates energy in us. A challenge and a response. And the response depends upon our idea, about our formulation, concept. And that response is limited, however wide the challenge or however small. And thereby, it seems to me that we lose the extraordinary vitality of action. That is, if I can put it in a simpler form, if it is possible, if one observes oneself, one sees there is an idea, a concept according to which one is living, an image. So there is the image, the system, the idea, and the action. And we're always approximating the action to the idea, and thereby creating friction, conflict, and thereby losing energy. Because you need tremendous energy to think very clearly, to feel passionately about anything, to be highly sensitive. You need an extraordinary amount of energy. And our problem is, it seems to me, that most of us have not sufficient energy inwardly, though outwardly you may be very active, going to the office, doing things and all the rest of it. But inwardly, we have not enough energy to tackle a problem immediately and resolve that problem instantly. We carry the problems over from day to day. And thereby lose the necessary energy to resolve the problem immediately. Now, is it possible to act without idea? That is, to live so completely in the present. And as we discussed the other day, to live in the present means to die to the past. And so give your complete attention to the present, wholly. And to give complete attention to the present demands not only the awareness of all the conscious movements of the brain, but also the unconscious movements. Which is to be aware of the unconscious as well as the conscious, to be aware not according to an idea or a formula, but to be simply aware without interpretation. And thereby live so totally in the present so that action is not the approximation to an idea, but action is immediate. See, if you observe yourself, are aware of the workings of yourself, you will see that how we are all the time observing with a conclusion and acting according to that conclusion, translating, interpreting, modifying what we see. Therefore, seeing, if there is no interpretation but pure observation, therefore there is seeing is acting without idea. Seeing is action. Because after all, the cultivation of thought, however necessary, is not love. And love, seems to me, is immediate action, not a thought out ideational action. I wonder if I'm at all conveying what I want to convey. Because you see, we need a total mutation. Deep at the very root of our consciousness, there must be a complete transformation. Otherwise, we are merely mechanics, living in a shoddy, superficial world with all its conflicts, miseries, and sorrows, and responding to those superficial demand surges. And to bring about a deep, fundamental revolution. One must inquire into action. One must find out what is action. Not according to circumstances, not according to social demands or reformatory actions, or nationalistic immediate pressures, and to find out what that action is, one must go very deeply, it seems to me, into oneself so profoundly, so that the brain is no longer operating on ideas, conclusions, and memories. And therefore is capable of living in that total present, which in itself modifies every action, the very nature of action. I'm afraid I'm not conveying it at all. Am I? What is communion? I want to convey something to you. How do I convey it, and how do you listen to it? There must be cooperation between you and me and the speaker. How do you cooperate, or how do you listen to what is being said? Because it seems to me what is being said is very important. And how do you listen? Do you listen to capture the idea, to see the significance of words, or you are listening and therefore observing your own reactions and your own responses, conscious as well as unconscious, and therefore listening with an active present, listening in the active present, not approximating to what is being said. I want to say something, which is that one can live so completely in the present without idea and without thought. And that living so completely in the present, without idea, without thought, gives tremendous energy, which is necessary to bring about a total revolution. That's what I want to convey. Not in words, but to convey that you feel this reality of it. So that when you leave the tent, there is a tremendous revolution, mutation that has taken place. You see, as I was saying the other day, For us, thought has become tremendously important. Thought being idea. Thought, rational or irrational, neurotic or conditioned. It has become extraordinarily important. And thought guides our lives, shapes our ends, and controls our actions. To the speaker, thought has no importance whatsoever. Because as we explained, over and over again, thought's merely the response of memory, of tradition, of all the experiences of the past. And that past cannot meet this extraordinary present. Not the present of a particular problem, not the present of a particular society in travail, not the present of the war between different countries and so on, but the present that is totally devoid of thought, so that there is an observation without idea. And it is that observation which gives tremendous energy for mutation to take place. That's what I want to convey in a very few words. That is, to empty the mind of all the things that the brain has put into it. We need the brain to function, to operate, to do things. You need to have the past as knowledge. But not to let that interfere in any way with the present, which is action, which is energy. You have listened to that. Now, how have you listened to it? Have you listened to it as an observer looking at a fact, or merely listening with the idea that you want to get into that present? I don't know. You want to capture that present. Either one sees the fact, or one has an idea about that fact and interprets the fact according to that idea. Because you see, in our lives, there is very little love. We really don't know what it means. We know the so-called love with jealousy, envy, angry, that's so confused, that's so in such misery. We know that. With its passions, with its angers, with its hates. But we don't know what it means really, do we? To be in a state of love. Not loving somebody in particular, but to be in that extraordinary, vital, clear state of being. And as most of us have very little love in ourselves and therefore demand of another, what generally takes place is we find a release in one or two fixed avenues. Either sexually or intellectually or in some neurotic, emotional, sensational way. And as we are short of love, our problems increase. Problems of relationship, problems of what to do, problems that become more and more acute. And these acute problems become intensified because we have no other releases. I am talking of a mind that has no problem at all. Or, if it has a problem, it deals with it, understands it immediately and is finished with it. That is action. That is living in the present. So that the residue of that problem does not leave a mark. Because we're going to have problems all the time. Of various natures. And to deal with each problem as it arises so completely that it doesn't leave a memory, that it doesn't leave a mark, as something that you have learned, and with that you approach a new problem. Because if you approach the new problem with a memory, you have not resolved that problem. So, what we are trying to convey is that there is an action in which idea is in no way involved. And therefore that action is immediate and not the result of a mechanical memory. And such action releases tremendous energy. And you need to have that energy to find what is true. To find out what is beyond the measures which man has set for himself. Beyond the things built by man, by the brain of man. Let me put the question differently. Most of us lead a very shallow life. And we are satisfied to live in a petty, narrow way. And realizing we live superficially, we become discontented and try to find an answer, or try to find out how to become more deep. A shallow mind trying to become deep is still shallow. A petty mind seeking God, or whatever it may call, is still petty mind, and its God will be petty. Now, how to transform completely the empty, shallow, dull, stupid mind so that it is totally alive? Because not only the world demands that you shall have a new mind, a fresh mind, because the problems are going to increase more and more. More bloodsheds, more wars, more confusion, more competition, more progress and things. And if your mind is not fresh, it's going to be caught by circumstances. Not only that, but also you need a fresh mind to find out. A young mind, a mind in decision, to find out if there is something beyond the measure, beyond the things that have been put together by society as God, as truth, as this or that. And for that you need tremendous energy. Energy which is not the outcome of a conflict. Energy that has no motive. So the problem is, one can have only that liberating, destructive, clarifying energy only when every form of conflict has been understood and resolved. And you can only resolve every conflict when there is self-knowing. Knowing the totality of your own consciousness. And we have gone into that. So I won't go in, repeat all over again how to inquire into oneself. Otherwise, we live with sorrow and misery. We live everlastingly seeking, searching, and always in conflict. And surely, love has no conflict. That, you may say, that is an idea, an ideal, a perfect state. But it's not. But it comes into being when you really begin to understand the totality of yourself. So, what is important is to discover for oneself how we are caught in words and in ideas. How we are slaves to formulas, concepts, and in the very perception of that fact, that perception alters the very nature of action. And in the mutation of action there is passion, which is energy. And with that energy, which is all part of love, part of creation, then when the brain, the mind can enter into something which it has not conceived or formulated, which is something unknown. Now, can we possibly discuss this? The lady asks, right, please.
But many people have not the mechanics to be aware, and that should not be punished.
As far as I understand the question is, must not one be, if one is to be aware, must not one meditate? And most of us are incapable. Please correct me if I am wrong, if I am misrepresenting your question. Most of us are incapable of clear thinking. Is that it?
Clear thinking and feeling what is in your conscious, for it is not only thinking, yes, but perceiving.
Would you mind making the question short?
It is not only thinking, but feeling too. Perhaps what you mean by, yes, it is really a kind of awareness on what is in the conscious.
You understand. I'm very sorry. Someone who has heard that question down there, would you please repeat it to me?
answer, may I try to speak in English? The lady has said, in order to be aware, one must be able to meditate. And to her, meditation means thinking and feeling. Now, if a person is an idealist, that person has not the mechanics to think and feel clearly. That is what she has stated.
All right, sir. I'll repeat the question. The question is, to be aware one must meditate. And meditation implies both the harmony of thought and feeling. That's right?
Yes,
I don't know what you mean by meditation. I don't know what you mean by being aware, nor by the words thought and feeling. I am not being particularly dialectical. But when you use the word aware, what does it mean to be aware? I'm aware of you, and you are aware of me. And I see so many faces, so many colors, the tent, I hear the noise of the river, and the birds, and the flutter of the leaf in the wind as I see through that gap. I'm aware of all that. I'm also aware of my reactions to all that. And also aware how these reactions arise according to the conditionings, to memories, to the accumulated knowledge. And how I interpret everything I hear in terms of like or dislike, according to my particular prejudices. I'm totally aware consciously as well as unconsciously of the motives, the demands, the urges. The speaker means, by using that word aware, to include all that. And perhaps the questioner doesn't mean that at all.
the questioner said, if you are neurotic, you think of the sense of
I beg your pardon. Oh, Lord. The questioner says, if one is neurotic, if one is neurotic or mad, then there is no possibility of being aware. Obviously. Now wait a minute. Are you speaking for the neurotic, or do you realize you are yourself neurotic? No, please don't laugh at all. This is a very serious question I'm putting to you. Are you speaking for a neurotic, or being aware that you are neurotic, you are asking that question? No, please. If you are aware, if one is aware that one is neurotic, which is a very difficult thing to do, if I am aware that I am neurotic, then I am already coming out of that neuroticism. But most of us are not aware of our peculiarities, of our slightly unbalanced states, our exaggerations. our peculiar idiosyncrasies and fixations. But to be aware of that neurotic condition requires attention, watching. And most of us, first of all, have not the energy, nor the time, nor the inclination to observe ourselves. We rather go to an analyst or somebody who will do the job for us. And therefore complicate our life more and more and more. So, if you are aware one is neurotic, not only superficially but deeply, as most of us are, then to bring about a change, one must be aware, one must watch every word, every things that you feel, think, go into yourself so profoundly. And perhaps then, out of that awareness, there comes meditation. But we've gone into that, I won't go into all that again.
A mother gives birth to a child, and she takes care of it immediately. Seems to me that this spontaneous action is more than attachment. It's action without idea. Law.
So what is, and then what, sir? You have stated you have given a definition.
I say that even this woman may not have an innocent mind. She's
Then
in a state of law.
What is the question, sir?
The question is, if law can be there where the mind is still not innocent.
I am afraid, you see, that is not a question, sir, is it? You are merely stating or giving a definition.
No, sir. In my opinion,
But we are not dealing with opinions, we are dealing with facts.
but it seems to me that it is a fact that in this action there is law, and even so, this woman may not have an innocent mind.
All right, sir. Sir, don't you want to find out for yourself what is action? Don't you want to find out what it means to live in the present? Don't you want to find out how to strip yourself of all the things that society, environment has given you to find out? What is truth? What is this whole business of living? Apparently, that demands a great deal of inquiry. And most of us are unwilling to do that. And therefore we ask questions that are, I'm afraid, rather irrelevant. So look, do you know what's going on in the world, don't you? The threats of war, hectic competition, the brutalities, you know what's going on, very well. What is your response to all that? How do you find out how to act in relation to all that? Or we are so concerned with our own selves that we have no time for the bigger questions. Or you have an answer for all this because you have been told by some authority. And therefore you verbally have a response, but not profoundly, not from your heart and mind, from your own depth. That's why this morning I was talking about action. Because a human being has to act. His very living is action. And that action has led us to a great deal of misery, corruption, confusion. We have to find a different way of acting, different way of living. Not merely live according to some definitions, according to Lenin, Marx, or some other person. We have to tear all this and to find out. No, I saw you something.
I think to become aware of ourselves, or to become aware of
What's the difficulty, madam?
to enter that space you spoke last time. To make your mind.
Yeah, I see.
That is the difficulty for us. And your mind is behind that emptiness. So it's sometimes impossible to follow you. You understand?
Yes. The lady, the question is to think clearly, to observe directly. You need space. Space between what you see and yourself. Space. And she says we have no space. Most of our mind is so crowded, cluttered up. There is no space at all. And she says, how is one to come by that space? Isn't that right? Madame, écoutez, voyons. The lady asked, see, we have talked about this so much. I wonder with what urgency we live. With what intensity we live. You know, the world as it is demands a clarifying action, a mind that is not cluttered up, a mind that is not neurotic, not a mind that has got fixed points from which it starts to think. You need to have a different mind. First of all, do we see the necessity of such a mind? Now, if you see the necessity of such a mind, how are you going to get it? Who is going to give it to you? Can anybody give it to you? Or you have to work furiously. You have to give all your energy to find out. See, most of us have not that energy because we're so afraid. We're so afraid of our own little securities, our own little back garden. And that fear deprives us of any energy. So you have to tackle all that. You have to strip yourself of all this fear. We have discussed this during these 9 talks. And as I have said, the very act of seeing that your brain, your mind is clouded, fearful, that very act of seeing brings about an action which will destroy that fear. There was somebody else who asked. Yes. Yes. Is there a difference between observing yourself and observing nature outside yourself? Let's go into that. It's good. That's really quite a good question. Not the others have not been a good question. When we say outside and inside, what do we mean by that? Outside the skin and inside the skin. Outside the mountain, the trees, the rivers, the people. Inside, my particular private thoughts, hopes, fears, reactions. The inside and the outside. The inside, the censor, who judges, observes, condemns, evaluates. And that which I see outside of me. which I cannot change, which I observe. So there is the thinker and the thought as one aspect of the outside and the inside. Then there is the experiencer and the thing experienced, which again is the inside and the outside. Then there is the world outside and there is the world inside. We know this division. My wife outside, me inside. My ambitions, my greeds, my bestialities, my cruelties, love, and all the rest of it. So there is the outside and the inside. Now, how do you observe the outside? And how do you observe the inside? Do you observe the outside from a mind which merely reacts and says, that is good, this is bad, that's the mountain, that's the tree? Or do you observe without thought, without idea, now let's put it differently. You see a flower. Do you observe it botanically or non-botanically? Do you observe the flower by giving it a name and therefore observe it? Or do you merely observe, not giving it a name? You see the difference? Now if you go into it a little bit more, which is, we are by circumstances, by every form of education and so on, we are made dull. We are half asleep and we need challenge. Otherwise we would be completely asleep. Now, being challenged, I observe. Otherwise I won't observe at all. Because generally, I don't observe. I only observe the things that are around me, that I'm only concerned with, not observe the whole problem of existence. So to shake me out of my lethargy, my dullness, my laziness, I need to have challenge. Which I call the outside. Society, problems, death, and so on, the thing outside. Please follow all this. Then if one is little more awake, intelligent, questioning, one puts aside the outside challenges altogether. Because you yourself are questioning yourself all the time, inquiring, searching, groping, asking, demanding. Therefore you don't want an outside challenge. Therefore, such a man who does not need an outside challenge, there is no outside and inside. He is in a state of inquiry. He's in a state of revolution, rebellion, in a state of observing. Then if you go still further, you become a light to yourself and therefore no challenge at all. You're so completely awake. But that is far away for most of us. And when we say the outside and the inside, is there such thing as an outside and inside, psychologically? Or is it like a tide that goes out and comes in? So if you observe, if you have listened to that question and have gone into yourself to find out how you observe, how you see the mountain, the tree, your wife, your children, your neighbor, the ideas, the quarrels, the mischief that is being done in the world. How do you look at it? What is your relationship with it? Are you part of it or you are away from it? Are you the result of society, environment, or you have understood it, you are away, you are something entirely different. There is a mutation taking place that gives you a clarity, an urgency, a sense of love that is not merely emotive.
Is impulsive action right action is not a reaction?
I'm afraid we are using the wrong words, aren't we? Impulsive action, right action, good God. You see, I'm afraid either we don't know, some of us don't know English and the use of English words, and therefore we find an impulsive action. What does impulsive action mean? Surely that needn't be answered, need it? Spontaneous action. She may mean that. If she means, is spontaneous action right action? Do you know how difficult it is to be spontaneous? When one has been so conditioned by society, when we live on memory, on past, how can you be spontaneous? The word spontaneity implies surely to do something spontaneous, immediately, without any motive, without any thought, without any feeling. You just do it out of fullness. It is not self-centered action. But that requires, to be really spontaneous, requires stripping yourself of everything of the past. It's only the innocent mind that can be spontaneous. I think that's enough, isn't it? Yes.